Imagine a bank that's older than most countries, a financial fortress hidden in the mountains of Switzerland. It's so rich, it rivals the budgets of small nations, and you've probably never heard its full story. This is the story of Pictet Group and Lombard Odier and Company, two Swiss dynasties of private banking that quietly control unimaginable wealth. They built empires under the radar. They move billions while the rest of us watch the news about tech startups. But the truth behind their power will shock you. In this video, you'll discover 1. How a bank founded in 1796 in Geneva quietly became a financial titan. 2. What secret mechanisms these banks use to manage wealth that even governments struggle to track. 3. The hidden connections between these Swiss dynasties and global power, and what it means for your financial future. Let's dig into the first wow moment: how these banks quietly amassed wealth that rivals entire countries, and you never noticed. Take Lombard Odier, founded in 1796, based in Geneva. Over time, it didn't stay a local bank. At the end of the 19th century, it became the lead underwriter of U.S. securities in Switzerland. That's huge. Think about it. A Swiss bank underwriting American securities in the 1800s, when most banks were still local. This meant they were connecting major global flows of money, something very few banks did at the time. Now, fast forward. Today, these banks manage hundreds of billions of dollars in assets. For instance, the Pictet Group is one of Switzerland's largest private banks, offering wealth management, asset servicing, and more. This scale is often unseen because private banks don't advertise the way public banks do. Let's bring this closer to home. Suppose you or someone you know is investing, maybe not billions, but tens or hundreds of thousands. The question is, where does that money go? How is it managed? These banks operate in that world, but at ultra-wealthy levels. So their structure and strategies matter, even if your money isn't there, because they shape the rules. Another example, the Pictet Lion. The bank's logo is a lion, taken from the Pictet family coat of arms, symbolizing strength and defiance. The Pictet Group. These symbolic things matter because they reflect the culture, heritage, stability, power. This is not a fast-moving startup bank, it's centuries old. So the revelation: the Swiss private banking dynasties are not just banks. They are global wealth engines. They built systems that quietly moved, stored, and managed vast sums that few understand, and many assume are under public oversight. But they're not. And if you think that's crazy, wait until you hear this. Now we move to the deeper layer: the hidden mechanisms and structures that make this wealth engine operate, and why they give these banks an almost untouchable status. First, structure. Many of these banks were family-owned partnerships. That means the partners bore unlimited liability. That created incentive for extreme caution, stability, stewardship. For example, the history of Swiss private bankers notes that in Geneva, private banking began in the 1500s with merchant refugees and became a specialized wealth management field. Wikipedia. This means the banks evolving from merchant roots had culture and structure that many modern banks lack. Second, global reach and discretion. These banks helped wealthy individuals move assets across borders, diversify risks, use secrecy jurisdictions, protect wealth from wars or political instability. Switzerland's neutrality and strong currency meant it became a go-to place for assets in uncertain times. Swiss info. That means the bank dynasty isn't just local, it's truly global. Third, hidden influence. These banks don't just store money, they manage it, advise it, distribute it. The decisions they make influence markets, investment flows, ownership of assets. Because they often serve ultra-wealthy families, their advice and network have outsized power. For example, Pictet's history shows that it began as an independent partnership, and today manages massive assets while staying private, meaning less regulatory visibility than large public banks. Wikipedia. Lombard Odier again shows early underwriting of foreign securities, meaning they were already taking risks others weren't. That kind of edge gives long-term competitive advantage. Lombardodier.com. Contrast this with ordinary banks that focus on retail customers. These dynasty banks focus on a tiny segment of ultra-wealthy clients. The rules are different. The fees are different. The influence is different. And yet, because they are private, the public rarely knows the full scope. Here's an insider insight. According to research on Swiss banking elites, families such as Speyer, Pictet, Lombard, Hensch were key actors already in the 19th century. And today, many of the partners in private banks still come from banking lineages. That means generational influence. Wealth is not just money. It's connections, knowledge, legacy. So the revelation. These Swiss banking dynasties operate in a parallel financial world, overlapping with, but distinct from, ordinary banking. They leverage structure, global reach, discretion, and generational power. And this brings us to the most shocking discovery of all. Here's where everything changes. The hidden empire behind these banks is far more influential than you might think. And its impact touches your life, whether you know it or not. Consider this. If a bank quietly holds, manages, and channels hundreds of billions of assets globally, then the decisions they make affect investments, job creation, industries, even governments. Yet they do so largely outside of public view. Take the Pictet Group and Lombard Odier. Both have centuries of history, both remain privately owned, and both continue to serve high-net-worth clients globally. What that means is they influence not just local Swiss wealth, but global capital flows. For example, the Pictet Group, founded in 1805, now manages assets and provides services worldwide, with offices in key financial centers like Geneva, Hong Kong, Singapore. Lombard Odier, founded 1796, was already underwriting American securities from Switzerland in the 1850s and 60s. Now imagine this: a wealthy family in Asia, a billionaire in Latin America, a royal family in the Middle East. Each needs wealth management, asset protection, diversification. They go to banks like these. The banks structure their investments, manage their assets, provide counsel. That gives the banks a form of power: advisory power, gatekeeper power, strategic power. And because they are private, there is less transparency. That means their influence is hidden from everyday citizens, hidden from standard financial oversight, hidden from media in most cases. Here's the biggest shocking fact. The legacy and size of these banks mean that they operate with the status of dynasty more than company. Generations pass the torch. Decisions are made beyond quarterly earnings reports. Their stewardship of wealth lasts centuries. That gives them a kind of staying power unmatched by most financial institutions. For instance, many of the partners in Swiss private banks still come from the lineage of top bankers. That means the wealth, the network, the influence is inherited, not just built. What does this mean for you? It means that the world of money is not just public banks, stock markets, mutual funds. It means there are layers and layers of financial structures silently shaping the economy. These dynasties sit at the top of that pyramid. So the climax, a hidden financial empire rooted in Switzerland, with centuries-old dynasties handling wealth that could rival nations, influencing global finance, yet largely invisible to most of us. So what does all this mean for us today? Why should you care? 1. Transparency and accountability. When enormous wealth is managed behind closed doors, public oversight weakens. The decisions made by these banks can impact economies, but the accountability is limited. That means potential risks: money flows escaping regulation, tax bases eroding, financial power concentrating. 2. Your money's ecosystem. Even if you're not operating at billionaire level, the financial infrastructure shaped by these dynasties affects you. The investment vehicles they develop filter down. Private banking innovations might eventually become mainstream. If you invest through funds, advisors, global platforms, you're in the same ecosystem. 3. Future of wealth and inequality. If wealth is managed by dynasties that span centuries, then generational accumulation becomes locked in. The inequality gap can widen when institutions exist to preserve vast fortunes across time. That has social, economic, and political consequences. 4. Global tax and regulation. As governments try to tax the ultra-wealthy, these banks become critical junctions. The strategies they deploy for high-net-worth clients often outpace regulations. For instance, Switzerland's banking secrecy has been under pressure. Swiss Info. If you follow tax debates, the role of private banks is central. 5. Your investment mindset. Knowing that money can be stewarded across generations, across borders, with immense discretion, changes how you view your own financial decisions. Maybe you're not moving billions, but you might still seek better diversification, long-term thinking, legacy planning. 6. Risk awareness. These dynasties are not immune to scandal or change. For instance, many Swiss private banks had to change their legal structure to meet regulatory demands. Bloomberg. What seems stable can shift, so whether you're investing, building wealth, or just watching economy, you should be aware of underlying systems. 7. Predicting the future. The next 10 to 20 years may see increased scrutiny of such private banking dynasties. Tax regimes may tighten. Transparency will likely increase. The very power structures built in secrecy may need to open up more. That affects how they manage wealth for clients and how new millionaires or billionaires engage with them. On a personal level, ask yourself, where is your money going? How much freedom do you have? How visible are your investments? If you scale up your wealth, what kind of institutions will you trust? These are real questions shaped by the legacy of these Swiss banking dynasties. Before we wrap up, there's one final thing you need to know. A twist. The power of these banks isn't just financial. It's cultural. It's generational. It's hidden in plain sight. These banks, Pictet, Lombard Odier, they didn't just build financial empires. They built legacies that outlast presidents, governments, market crashes. Their value lies not just in money, but in continuity. They manage wealth so it survives wars, revolutions, economic collapses. That's the secret most people don't see. Remember our opening, a bank older than many countries. Now you know why. It survived Napoleon. It survived world wars. It survived modern financial crises because it wasn't just a bank. It was a dynasty. So next time you hear about the ultra-rich, the hidden wealth, the offshore banking, think of the mountain banks in Switzerland, the ones with centuries behind them, quietly steering the flow of global finance. Because while you're watching headlines, they're managing legacies. Thank you for watching. If you found this story fascinating, consider subscribing. There's more behind the scenes of global power and money that most people never see.